Thanks, my guy. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, Tavante. Tavante, you know what, Tavante? You are all right with me, man. You are all right with me. Shout out to Tavante. That guy, he's becoming quite a staple here on the show. We got to bring Tavante on, man. Tavante, when you coming on the show, man? When you coming on the show, interview you. We live, y'all. I'm just telling y'all we live. If you don't know what that means that we back to action, like Janet Jackson. Yep. But yeah, man, I'm supposed to be interviewing Mr. Butch Kennedy this evening. Butch Kennedy of Men Against Domestic Violence, or MAD. Real Mad. Real Mad, yeah. Yo. It's time. What's up? What's up? What's up? Thanks everybody who's in here right now. So if Butch doesn't come in, I'm gonna adjust fire. And I'm gonna bring this gentleman here in. Let me see. You want to come in now? I guessed for tonight isn't here. All right, so we're gonna adjust fire. All right, cool. We're about to adjust fire. So let me tell y'all something here about Real Talk. Tell you about Real Talk with ReZsaun. Real Talk with ReZsaun is always ready to adjust and make it happen. So instead of having Butch Kennedy this evening, we're gonna adjust fire, and I'm gonna bring in Mr. John Mccollum. He's gonna come into the feed. He is actually running. He's actually a Republican running against Jim Clyburn. And he actually just reached out to me today and asked me if he could get some time on the show. So, you know what? We're just going to bring him in. And once he gets in here, we're going to have this discussion. You'll have this discussion. What's up? What's up? What's up? All right, how you doing? Carolyn from Impacted, Not Imprisoned. Miss Blake, we have you on the schedule, correct? I want to make sure. I'm pretty sure I received the application form from you. Yeah, I see you. I see you. I'm trying to wait for Mr. Mccollum to get in here, so I'm gonna switch this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna advertise now, Mr. Mccollum. I'm about to let the people know. Oh, he says he's on. You're not on. I don't see you. He said he's on. I don't see you. Am I in the wrong one? Am I in the wrong feed? No, I'm in Butch Kennedy. Oh boy. All right. No. August 19th. That's right. All right. Let me see what's going on with Butch, man. 5-7. No, you're not in. I'm looking for you. I don't see you. Go to the link on Facebook Messenger that I sent you. I'm not sure where he's at. He says he's where I am, but he can't be where I am because I am where I am. I don't see you, Butch. I'm looking backstage. I don't see you. Okay, I don't see you. I'm sorry, y'all, for the delay. Y'all know normally we start right on time, but for some reason, right now having some difficulties. I don't see you. RJ. RJ. I do apologize again. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. For some reason, we're having some difficulties. And I cannot see Butch, but he says he's in here. Connecting now. Loading. I do apologize again. I'm so sorry. This never happens, but we're going to make it work. I promise. We will have a show for y'all tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Nah, I don't see you. Can you see me? Yeah, you know. Whatever the enemy can do to distract, steal, kill, destroy, the enemy will do that. But one thing that the enemy never planned on was me. We're gonna make this happen, y'all. Let me give y'all some music while we wait. Because I'm trying to get my guests in the show. I don't know what's going on. I got my nice shirt on. I'm gonna do this tonight with my nice shirt. There's Butch. There you go.
There it goes. I can see you, man.
All right. I can see you now. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me do my intro.
At the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me do my intro and I got you. All right.
All right. Sounds good, man.
All right. So he's backstage and we're going to get started right. Let me close this.
I knew that was something I needed to have.
All right, like in Nuclear, which is my
You are clearing a house of information.
None other than one of those very heroes. So, for those who don't know, I'd like you to take a couple minutes.
Are you originally from the Charleston area?
And a youth in South Carolina. Here, raised.
Right, well, my name's Alex.
The team is when the Emmanuel to spread love and
Hello world and welcome back to Real Talk with ReZsaun when nothing's off limits. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with me and I appreciate that. I am your host, ReZsaun Lewis. Now, here on Real Talk with ReZsaun, everything's debatable, so in any given week, we could be discussing anything from sports to music to politics. You name it, we'll discuss it. And today, we have a very special set of guests, actually. I planned on having one guest, but instead, we're going to have two. I have Mr. Butch Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. And I'm going to have Mr. John Mccollum as soon as he gets to connected. We're going to have him on as well. So we only planned on having one guest tonight, but we're just going to have two, and we're going to have fun with it. All right, Butch, a little change of plans, but I got you. Yep.
No worries, man. No worries.
Indeed. So for those who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself to the audience.
All right, my name is Butch Kennedy. I am actually the director of Project Unity USA, the founder of Real Mad, Real Men Against Domestic Violence.
Okay, and where are you originally from?
I'm originally from, I'm a military brat, so I've been all over. I call my home Columbia. I graduated from Oakland High School in Columbia, so graduated from college also. I'm actually an engineer, so I design communication systems for the Marines. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, yeah.
All right, so what made you want to get into like the work of domestic violence?
It was pretty interesting, man. I came into this field because Project Unity actually works to reduce crime in high crime areas. Mm-hmm. And I came into this field because at the time, North Charleston was the 7th most dangerous city in the United States at this time. And this was many, many years ago. And I came into this field and I was speaking at certain venues. And a young lady came up to me and her name's Sarah Finkelstein. And she said, Mr. Kennedy, if you want to deal with violence in our community, you need to address domestic violence. And at that point, I was kind of a little naive. I didn't know much about it. So I went and started doing my own research on it. And once I started researching on it, man, I decided, that, and I thought this was easy. I was a little naive. I thought it was going to be pretty easy, because I'm a man. I figured we get men together, because men were never at the table. So we get men to the table and we had this conversation. Men are going to come on board, right? And we're going to finish it. We're going to fix this, right? So I was a little naive. And here we are 14 years later. Still trying to fix it. So yeah, man, but brothers like you, man, who's doing what you're doing, man, it gives me hope for our future because, I've been with you, I've been in your presence, and I see what you do with our kids, man, and I'm proud of just seeing what you and people like Sam and all these guys are doing, man. It's just amazing.
Wow, praise God, man. That's high praise, and I definitely would take it. But I always say, man, it's so many people, that play a role in this game, that we have to make sure that we're acknowledging and that we're supporting people like yourself who do the great work of supporting and fighting against domestic violence. I do want to ask this question because a lot of times when people are, confronted, when people become advocates, that becomes a personal thing for them. Is there a personal story from your life or like your childhood that you saw that made you realize even before you decided to get into the fray for fighting against domestic violence that made you feel like it was something that you needed to be a part of?
It's funny, man, because a lot of people that I work with, they usually have some sort of history with domestic violence, and I have none. I have none. The reason why I got so deep into it is because I watched this video, this young lady by the name of Carolyn Thomas, and she's actually on my Facebook page as well. She's a Facebook friend of mine, and she had her face shot off. And for a while there, it just blew my mind. I could never fathom how a man could do that to a woman, especially a woman that he claims that he loves. Yeah. So for a while there, I had her picture on as my screensaver at work, and I had like about 12 pictures of her, and they reconstructed her face. She called herself the $1 Million Woman because that's how much it cost to reconstruct her face. And I had all those pictures scrolling on my computer, and then I did all the research that I needed to do, and I realized, if I get men together, we as men together can actually work to reduce this crime against women. So that's what
absolutely can. We absolutely can. And so you mentioned the fact that, the support. How do you feel like you've been supported by the male population of the area? Well, I don't even want to speak about the ladies. Let's talk about the men right now.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned it.
We can be honest. We can be honest.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned it because a lot of stuff that we talk about when we talk about, you were talking about toxic masculinity and all these other subjects that you talk about. That allows men the opportunity to not even be part of the discussion. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to find men that are willing to actually be part of the solution when it comes to ending violence against women. I mean, 80% of men will never abuse a woman, and they don't agree with that either. But there's 20% of men that will. Somewhere near that neighborhood, there's 20% of men that will. And the sad reality is they do it around men who said that it's not right. So,
Yeah.
as long as we as men speak out against it and we as men stand up against it, then I believe that we can work together to have conversations with these men that do it. But the difference between me and a lot of other people, ReZsaun, is I understand why it's being done. I did the research. I understand why we are where we are today. And in order to understand where you are, you got to understand where you have been. So when I do my trainings I bring people all the way back to the beginning of time and how men, have basically dominated women since the beginning of time, and how it's just, it's a male privilege type thing as well. So, and it's not only men that abuse, right? There's women out there. A lot of people say there's 1 in 3 women are victims of domestic violence, but nobody will ever tell you that 1 in 4 men are also victims of domestic violence.
Yeah. So do you think that? So there was a time where, it was pretty common, for, granddad or, uncle or, whoever to smack his wife up. Like that was a common thing. Do you think that that's something that's more prevalent or less prevalent than the time of our parents and our grandparents?
Well, when I came up, that was kind of normal. I mean, it was nothing to see, in my time, in my era, it was called putting your woman in her place, putting your woman in check. The good thing about it is now we have a group of young men that were raised by other men that know better, right?
Right.
So when you know better, you do, and that's what I'm learning, and that's what I'm seeing now. A lot of men who were raised that way, who were raised totally different now, would never raise their hand to a woman. So I'm excited about seeing stuff like that there more often than not.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We had John Mccollum, who just joined us. I want to make sure that I break in action just to welcome John on. Thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself to the audience, John.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. John Mccollum. It's good to be with both of you. Butch, you look very familiar. I feel like I've crossed paths with you before. I don't know where, but you got a familiar face to me. And ReZsaun, I appreciate you having me on, man. I really appreciate what you had to say the other day. I was introduced to you by Shakim downtown, and following him ever since, just the spring and all that's been happening in 2020. I'm running against Jim Clyburn this fall. I'm the Republican nominee. It's a snowball's chance in hell to do anything of significance, but maybe I told my wife when I came back, there's one of 3 things that could happen. I'm either crazy, stupid, or genius. And I figure that's a 1 in 3 chance.
Well, I like the energy. I gotta be honest with you. I like the energy, and I like the gall behind it. I have to admit, I like the gall behind it because, like you said, that's the tall tree to climb. But but I mean, shoot, worst case scenario, you lose and people know who you are, and that's a dub.
Well, you're right. I mean, and if you lose and you go out in a blaze of glory and you're obnoxious or you're rude or you say things that you just try and grab headlines, but you're not being thoughtful, then you're really going to make a fool out of yourself and ruin your life. But I plan on being respectful and decent throughout the process. So if nothing more, it's being a part of the process.
I respect that. I love that. So the topic that we're talking about tonight, just so you guys know how this hodgepodge came to be. I actually was, I guess Butch was having some issues getting into the line, and John was actually in the inbox asking me, when he could get on the show. And I was like, hey, you can come on right now. And like being the man that he is, which speaks highly to the man that you are, John, I got to be honest with you. I was like, you want to come on now? And he said, yeah, bring me on now. And he popped in. So we're going to have a discussion centered around politics and domestic violence, if that's okay. Is that cool?
Very comfortable with it. Yeah, absolutely. And Butch, if you'd like to have the floor, I will defer to you because you are the special guest of the evening. I'm impromptu. So I actually think that there's a way, because we normally have these discussions through the lens of the African-American community, but we don't actually know a whole lot about, quote unquote, the Caucasian community as it pertains to domestic violence. Especially, I know as a black man, we hear a lot about, like black on black crime, or, our black men have to stop beating our black queens and these kind of things. Is domestic violence a major issue in the Caucasian community that you feel? Not my household. I'd get beat up if that was the case.
I love that answer. I love that answer.
That's right.
But, when it comes to domestic violence, I think that it's certainly something that's on everybody's minds in the era of COVID and high stressors. I mean, life is stressful enough. Then you throw in all the nonsense that 2020's brought along with it. It's a powder keg.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Butch, do you have any numbers on that?
Yeah, domestic violence has no boundaries, man. It affects all of us. It affects every race, every religion, every creed, every color. So, I mean, every year the Attorney General has what he calls a silent witness program. And in that silent witness program, they bring out the silhouettes of victims who were lost to the domestic violence every year. And it's usually about a 50-50 lethality rate between whites and blacks as well.
Wow.
So we usually go to that. And every year we do a walk across the bridge, the Ravenel Bridge. And when we do that walk, we have those silhouettes set up as well. We have our own table silhouettes set up as well with all the victims of domestic violence. And usually we would have some of the victims' children or some of the parents, some of the victims' families will be there to speak out on domestic violence. So, yeah.
So can you talk about the walk that you do? Because I know that's a really big thing, the walk for domestic violence.
Right. Every year we walk across the Ravenel Bridge. It's usually done in September. This year, just like John was saying, with COVID, we don't know whether we're going to do it this year or not. Yeah. But the goal is to empower victims and to raise money as well. And the reason why we raise that money is because a lot of times these victims that are out here have no other options. We have one safe house in the Tri-County area, and 9 times out of 10 it's full. It's at an 80% capacity just about all the time, and the majority of the time on the weekends it's usually full. And a lot of victims just can't get in. And now with COVID going on, it's even worse. I mean, they're closed. So our phones ring off the hook all the time. And in order for us to help victims, I always ask the good people of Charleston to help me help them. And they've been so gracious in their giving. They come to the walk and they support these victims, man. To me, it's kind of hard to hear the stories, but the victims tell me afterwards that they feel empowered afterwards, and that makes it all worthwhile to me.
Wow, I love that. Yeah. I want to spin it to you, John. As somebody who's running for elected office, the House of Representatives, that seat that has been held by Jim Clyburn for this amount of time. Do you feel as though the government has done enough to protect domestic violence victims? And if so, if not, what would you do differently?
I think you're really striking on a lot of issues there in one single question. So I appreciate that.
No problem.
And Butch, I think I know where I know your cutout campaign. Were you the one who originally spearheaded that in Columbia? Was that part of your initial outreach?
Yeah, that was part of our initial campaign. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it. I know it, and that's probably where I've seen your face before. And
I'm sorry you have to look at this ugly face today too, man. I apologize.
No. You've got a lovely silver fox thing going on there. It matters.
He's a politician.
Y'all can exchange numbers at the end of the call.
But that being said, I think there's one of the great fallacies between the parties, and I don't mean to impugn anybody who associates or affiliates with a particular political party, but I think one of the greatest flaws of government is that they think that they can legislate the home. And I think that no matter what you do or how well-intended a program may be, you're not going to change the family dynamics. I come from a broken home. My parents didn't get divorced because they got along. They got divorced because it was bad. And no matter what would have been done at the state level, no matter what would have been done at the federal level, it wouldn't have changed how my parents were interacting with each other. And it's not because of an absence of love. I mean, overwhelmingly here in domestic situations, I'm hitting you because I love you. And I don't think that there's anything that you can legislate, but when it always boils down to it, how can we as a society influence and affect domestic abuse scenarios is how do we bring positivity into their lives? How do we facilitate what we can control? And I think of, domestic, I live on the west side of the peninsula. I live next to a housing project, and I overhear and bear witness to lots of domestic issues. I don't interject myself, and it's not my place, but I hear it, and I probably can guess 3 or 4 principal reasons why there's abuse or abusive language. I don't witness the physical abuse, otherwise, of course, I'd report it, but it's typically associated with a downtrodden life, a lack of goals, a lack of positive influence in their lives. And that's where all these types of interactions manifest out of themselves. And just like I would hope to try and find somebody something to do with their day, so that way they don't end up spending it drinking. Or if they had a positive influence in their lives, they probably wouldn't be so irritable.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of like a good football team. Success masks all flaws.
Yeah.
And if we can make folks more successful in their professional lives and their societal interactions, maybe they won't bring it home and take it out on each other, because there's men and women who both get abused. It's not just women being abused.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for saying that. Butch, bringing it back to you, man. We have a question from Ms. Carolyn E. Blake from Impacted Not Imprisoned. And she wanted to know, she said, what are some reasons that research shows that domestic violence is prevalent within the community?
Domestic violence is about power and control. A lot of people just think that domestic violence usually happens for one reason or another, but it's usually about power and control. That's why when everybody tells people, you need to just leave that relationship, I kind of cringe every time they say that. Because when a person leaves a relationship, that's the most dangerous time for that person. And everybody's always apt to say, you need to leave that relationship. We need to really leave that relationship. Why don't we just tell them to stop beating her? You know what I mean? Why don't we just stop beating her? That's where I come in. That's what I do. I talk to men about, what it takes for us to walk away from a situation like that. Because we know our points, right? We know when we're going to reach that point, right? So why can't we just walk away when we reach that, before we get to that point? So
yeah.
So that's what our training is all about, is to get men to understand how important it is for them to walk away.
Do you think men have that conversation with their male friends?
I don't think so. The sad reality is a lot of people who know what I do, they'll talk to me about it. I had a young gentleman that was being abused, and it was funny because all the guys were laughing at him about it. They thought it was funny. I mean, he'd come to work, he'd have a black eye, he'd have scratches all down his neck, all around his back. And it took me a while to get him out of that relationship. But men have the same issue, and the sad reality is when men are abused, they're definitely not going to even talk about it, right? They're too embarrassed to even talk about it. So we might find out that there's 1 in 4 men that are victims of domestic violence, but those are only reportable. It's like we say 1 in 3 women are victims of domestic violence. Those are the only ones that report.
Yeah.
It's got to be far worse than that. And during COVID, man, the way my phones are ringing now, man, it's just a lot worse.
Wow. That's a great point. I want to swing real quick. So let's talk about COVID, because you brought COVID up, and COVID has the amount of time that people have had to spend in their homes due to, the quarantines and the things of the schools closing, and, these different things that we've seen happen. They've definitely led to a rise in domestic violence as well as child abuse, if you will, in a lot of situations, the extension of a lot of bad situations. Mr. Mccollum, in terms of the government's response to it, how do you feel the government has done in responding to the issue of the COVID epidemic?
Oh, ReZsaun, it's you got great questions tonight. And
I'm a host, man. That's what I do.
And it's phenomenal. No, and it's a whole talking point. I don't mean to go on a soliloquy here, but the point being is that how the government has responded to COVID. Where did COVID manifest? Why did we react the way we did, particularly to COVID, and how have we reacted in previous pandemics or epidemics? And I feel like this is going to be the biggest takeaway of COVID, is dissecting, did we react properly, or did we kill a mosquito with a sledgehammer?
Okay.
And I mean, a tangential discussion that I'm sure both of you have thought about as well is, there's lots of people arguing over the $3 trillion that we committed our children and our grandchildren to. Yeah. And everybody's pissed off about how it's been distributed. You know what would have been the best way to distribute that money? To have allowed the free markets to dictate where the money goes in the first place. To have not even necessitated the need for it. I've done my own particular personal studies on it. Is COVID real? Absolutely. Is COVID the greatest threat that we've ever faced medically? I think that's debatable. I think that is the level of nuance. That's why you see all the different photos or videos and content being banned on social media. And I think that it feeds into the topic that Butch focuses on and is otherwise an expert on, is domestic violence. I mean, and when you allow institutional experts to look at a societal issue like regulating a pandemic through a vacuum where they don't consider any other variable or vectors or factors other than the exclusive effect of a pandemic, well, then you're not being prudent. It's just not an appropriate way to respond to a casualty. When we respond to a casualty in the Navy, we have 3, 4, 5 different things that we need to be considered with. I mean, even a doctor themselves, when they're responding to a casualty in an emergency room, considers several different factors: secondary effect, tertiary effect, quaternary effect, and none of that was considered. None of it was considered. And I question why this way? Why did we react this way? But also, why did it manifest itself in an election year? And why does it continue to be an issue that plagues us, despite the fact that we have overwhelmingly healthy young people who are the spike in cases?
Interesting point. Do you think that the shutdown was the way to go about it, or should we have done it a different way?
No, I don't. I think in hindsight, 2020, I mean, boy, was our household terrified by all of this. But, after it was all said and done and you saw specifically who this disease was going after, so perhaps maybe the shutdown for 2-3 weeks was appropriate. But once you saw that this specifically infected and affected a vulnerable population, well, then you've heard it before, and I think that I probably agree with it. You don't isolate the healthy, you isolate the vulnerable. And the overwhelming majority of us who are of the working age are in, the median age is 42. The median age of those who are dying of COVID are 78, 79. Huh. That's not the working population. And right. I think that what that leads to is the environment that leads to domestic violence, which is desperation, frustration, paranoia, and a lack of opportunity and money.
Ah, great point. Great point. Speaking of COVID shutting down opportunities for for activation and for engagement, you had an event, Butch, coming up called the Boys to Men Conference that we had to push back. I was really excited about it. Can you talk about that event, just so we can really get an idea of what we're missing out on in August? That's gonna still happen. Just not in August.
By the way, Boys to Men is still played regularly in my house.
It's got to happen, ReZsaun, man. It really does have to happen. In my opinion, it was a gift that I wanted to give to our young boys, our young men. Every year, Roslyn Fields and the Yes organization does the same thing. They call it the Dream Girls Conference. Mm-hmm. They have over 4,000 girls that come from all over the state, and they empower these girls. And nobody has been empowering these boys. So this was a gift, and I gathered some of the greatest people that I know, and those are people from my community that are doing great things. And you'd be amazed. A lot of people will be amazed about the people that are in our community that do so many good things. And I gathered them together, and I just wanted them to pour into these kids. Now we had over 200 kids that had already pre-registered, right? So our count was, we were going to cut it off somewhere between 350 and 400.
Yeah, I remember.
But yeah, that day was specifically about empowering our young men. I mean, we need to teach our kids, especially our young men in particular, that male masculinity does not have to be tied to a gun. And that's very important to me, because a lot of men, a lot of young boys go out and try to find their manhood in the streets, and there's nothing for them in the streets. Yeah. And that's what that's the bottom line of our event. We just want to pour into these young men, give them opportunities. See, that's the main thing is we want them to see people that are successful people out there, telling them their story, their journeys. Yeah. And then maybe they realize that maybe they're going to achieve those journeys as well. A lot of kids that I deal with have never seen an engineer, especially a black engineer, right? Right. So when I go to speak to young kids and tell them what I do, it's amazing how all these young kids, at first, all they want to do is become rappers and basketball players and football players. Right. Now we get kids saying, I want to be an engineer. But the problem with that there, in order to do that, you have to be good at STEM, right? So that's the issue. I mean, Boeing came here and they opened up Charleston for a lot of job opportunities, but we weren't ready for them. Mm-hmm. We are not educating our kids in math and sciences well enough for them to go to a Boeing, for them to go to a Volvo, for them to go to any of these companies. So we have to start at a younger age and get these kids and just mentor and tutor these kids. That's why I'm so proud of what it is that you guys do when you mentor young kids.
Yes, sir.
And it's so important. A lot of people don't realize how important it is. And John was talking about he came from a broken home. I came from a broken home as well, right? And the thing about it is I was fortunate enough to have great uncles, that picked me up by my bootstraps when I needed to be picked up. A lot of other kids don't have those opportunities. A lot of other kids aren't that lucky.
Yeah.
And those are the kids that we wanted to reach out to. Those are the kids that we wanted to help. And this Boys to Men conference was definitely the opportunity to help them. We partnered with DJJ to get the kids out of DJJ. These kids are basically in jail. And we wanted to bring a message to these kids as well that they can still, they can still get out of the situation they are in and become successful.
I love that. I love that. Speaking of success, that comes back to you, Mr. John. So speaking of success, we talk about the communities, right? So the communities, and I know, I don't know what type of Republican you are. I know that you are a Republican. So you believe in smaller government, correct? Do you believe that the government has a role to play in the issues that impact the Black community, that lead to the disparities that we see in income and in educational problems? And if so, what are the solutions that you see for those issues?
Oh man, well, we could spend a whole show on that. Butch, I'm just curious, satisfy my curiosity. Which discipline of engineering are you in? Civil, mechanical, chemical?
I'm actually a computer engineer. I'm communications. We work in communications. We do the comm system for the Marines. I actually designed the comm system for the Navy, which you're in, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I actually designed that system many years ago.
Yeah, crypto techs and all those guys. Those guys are very intelligent, very capable.
I was crypto in the Air Force. That's what I did in the Air Force.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was crypto in the Air Force. Absolutely. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So that's what I did. I designed that system as well.
And I know, Butch, you can relate to this story just as much. And ReZsaun, that's a good question. Like, I was just going to ask the same question. How do we reach more young people who just don't understand the opportunities that are at their disposal? And I think of a kid that I was talking to on the east side. They're at High Battery playing basketball with, and we're sitting here going back and forth. I'm just talking to him about anything, just basketball and catching up. But then I ask him about school, and he's like, well, they keep pushing me to they keep pushing us to college, no matter what. I'm like, well, do you want to go to college? And he's like, I don't know, not really. And there's a lot that you can do other than going to college and still be involved in engineering professions that don't require a college degree, that don't require that you get these phenomenal grades. You know what? If you just go to school and you show up with a positive attitude, you'll go far in life. I mean, if you have a positive attitude and you're eager to learn, there's a lot that you can do. And to Butch's point, I mean, the thing that I can do personally is be a good example. I still have 30-year-old men who come around this neighborhood who will come up and knock on the door, and we'll have wonderful conversations. And honestly, it's almost a mentorship role. Even though I'm a peer age-wise with them, I'm still a mentor to them to a degree by just being as positive of an example as I can be. But we discussed this at the beginning, though, ReZsaun, to answer your question. What can the government's role be in it? There's nothing we can do to ensure that children are going to grow up in a household that loves them, that wanted them. But what we can do is we can try and save as many souls that want to be saved. I mean, I can go on a Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock and walk down the street and see people out drinking beer and breaking the bottles against the curb. They cannot be saved. They're not. They don't want to be saved. I mean, this is where scripture and government they intersect, in the sense that you cannot save those who are unwilling to be saved. But for those who want to be saved, for those who know they're capable of more, for those who come by the house and still want to talk with me, well, then we have to provide them a safe environment and also the awareness of the opportunity that's at their disposal. So at the federal level, what can you do? I mean, you throw money at it. And I think that throwing money at it doesn't do anything that's effective. It pays administrators and a new branch of some sort of bureaucracy within the school system a six-figure salary. But what it takes at the federal level in an office that I seek is seizing the pulpit and actually controlling the narrative. And like, We've had more COVID public announcements in the last 3 months than I've ever seen in my life. Remember
Yeah.
growing up, the NBC, The More You Know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, why don't we have an NBC, The More You Know, that you can go and learn how to be a CAG writer? You can, or CAG, do CAG images. You can do computer-aided imagery with a Trident technical degree and make $65,000 a year.
Yeah.
There's so many people that just don't even understand that this is at their disposal. So they just figure, I'll get my government check and I'll just go hang with the boys on the corner and then call it a day, and then never have a purpose, never be driven, never be inspired. And like, how do we reach the medium? Social media and TV. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to think through this with you guys.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I do think that I find it to be quite the quandary, that we're willing to put a lot of money as a nation into building prisons and into things about policing neighborhoods, but we won't use that same money to build community centers and pay people within the communities to help those communities. I think that's where I tend to have the problem with the idea of, okay, we can't throw money at the problem, because we'll throw money at giving money to police officers to make sure that they'll have militarized style equipment. We'll throw money at building more prisons. We'll throw money at all these different things. But then I say, hey, we need a community center in the middle of Ferndale so that we can make sure that these kids have a place to play safely. Then it's like, oh, where do we get the money from? I think that's a discussion we have to be able to have, and that can lead to significant change. And that's a criticism that I would have of the government, whether it be local, state, or federal, is that we spend entirely too much time policing neighborhoods as opposed to rebuilding our neighborhoods that tend to have these issues. And that's just me, but I'm just the host.
Well, but ReZsaun, I want to push back on that a little bit, because you're absolutely right. I mean, how do we mobilize these communities? And I mean, to be honest with you, the thing that makes when the nuclear family was becoming of prominence in the 50s and the 60s, and they would manifest these entire suburban communities, or these other different sorts of idealistic Ozzie and Harriet sort of situations. Well, they manifested because they actually had some sort of commerce that instigated it all. Mm-hmm. I mean, and boy, you can't civilly engineer a community that's perfect, but
true.
That's really one of the cornerstones of my campaign, which is opportunity zones. Opportunity zones is an imperfect legislation. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's perfect, because I'm telling you right now that legislation is never perfect.
Right.
And that's one of the greatest fallacies of the differences in the parties. One party thinks that you can legislate your way to a utopia, and the other thinks that utopia can never be legislated.
Good point.
And what I'm suggesting is that this imperfect legislation still is an advantage for us to go out and recruit suppliers for Boeing, for BMW, for what do they call them? WestRock, or Ingevity, or Bosch, or Mercedes-Benz. We've got so many major manufacturers in South Carolina. Each one of them, Butch is nodding because he's an engineer and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And there's dozens, if not hundreds, of suppliers associated with each one of these. Can I get federal legislation signed into law? There's 400 members of Congress. It's got to go through both houses, and the president's got to sign. Yes. No, but again, it's about the office and the pulpit that it commands. I am a salesman, and what I can do is get a lead list of 300 leads of each one of these suppliers to each one of these major manufacturers. And if I move a 20, 30-person operation to a downtrodden community, Kingstree, Orangeburg, Hampton, mm-hmm. You think 20 jobs in Hampton paying 15 or 14 or 16 bucks an hour wouldn't be a big deal? And guess what else comes with that money? It gets 20, 30 households spending money on a plumber, and also, hey, there's benefits probably with that job. Maybe he's going to marry his girl, or the girl that had his kids, or a kid of his, just like, hey, so you can have these benefits. Oh, all of a sudden now we have a complete household. Oh my God. Now we have a child who's observing a father who gets up, or a mother getting up and going to work on a regular mm-hmm. basis. Oh, and then the kid learns, oh, I don't want to turn wrenches like my old man for the rest of my life, so I better go to school. You got to see how this success begets itself. And then guess what follows is the community center that you just talked about. But that's down the line.
Yes, yes. No, I'm with you totally. And I just wanted to make sure I made that point. And thank you for that response. That's really, really good. Coming back to you, Butch. See, this I'm a host, y'all. I promise y'all I'm a host. Butch, man. So we're talking about the nuclear family. You know, we're talking about the community. How do men rise up? You know, and stop taking more of an apathetic role in the communities that it seems that we may have sunken into in a lot of cases, to limit the amount of impact that negative influences could have on our youth. I mean, what do you see in that regard?
And that's a great question. That's a great question as well. I mean, I want to expand on certain things that were said a little bit earlier as well.
Yeah.
And it comes with our kids and our education for our kids. It's hard to educate our kids, man, when they're starving at home and the only meal that they're going to get is the meal that they get at school. So that's one of the main issues that I have. A lot of people don't realize, but schools used to put out report cards. And in those report cards, it would tell how many of those kids were homeless. I found out that information. These kids are homeless. These kids have no place to live. They have no food. The only food they get is the food that they get in school. So we had an event for them, specifically for them, so that we can bring like the roach coaches out there to actually feed these kids on the weekend so that they have something to eat. And it's a sad state of affairs, but you know, it's hard. It's really, really hard to focus and to learn anything when you're hungry. So that's one issue that we have as far as that's concerned. The family dynamic when it comes to our young kids, man, and they see your father struggling, they see him working hard, they see him turning those wrenches like we just talked about, right? And they see Johnny on the corner, man, selling drugs, man. Johnny is selling weed, man, and Johnny's driving the Benz, man. And Johnny has all the fine girls and he has all the nice clothes, man. And all these kids want to be like Johnny, man, because he's a grease monkey. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Daddy's wearing them greasy clothes and all that stuff. But, you know, daddy's putting the roof over your head, right? Yeah. But Johnny, man, Johnny's just laying around, man. And he didn't have much to do, but he's getting paid. And you see that. And that's what you want. That's what kids want, which is really sad because kids don't get to see much. That's why the Boys to Men conference was so important, because I wanted them to see more. You know, kids are going to be what kids are going to be until they see more, right? So that was the gift that I wanted to give to these kids. I wanted them to see more so that they can get out of the situation, or see that they can get out of the situation that they're in. I think what John mentioned, man, about places like Trident Tech, that's huge. But what a lot of people don't know is North Charleston High School is actually putting out, right across the street from North Charleston, they're building a center right now for like shop and all this other stuff. All the electricity and all those other classes can be held there as well. When I was in high school, we had that. We had shop, we had electricity, we had all these classes that when you get out of school, you can actually go to work. I mean, college, what is college, man? College is something that lucky people get to go to, right? So we're seeing the value now in just the jobs like bricklaying. You know, I mean, people make a lot of money bricklaying, man. People make a lot of money plumbing. You know what I mean? Electricity, wiring up houses, all these things. People make a lot of money in. And our family dynamic is shattered because of the fact that, you know, our kids are smart. Our kids see what it is that they see, and they want the easiest route. They don't realize that, you know, Johnny is going to end up one day, he's going to go to prison, right? Yeah, he's going to go to prison one day. They don't realize that, right? Because they don't see Johnny that way yet. And the thing that really bothers me most is the way we harbor one another in our community. We know Johnny's doing wrong, right? But Johnny's in our community. We're not going to tell anybody that Johnny's doing wrong. We're just going to hold on to Johnny because Johnny is someone that we know. We don't want to see anything bad happen to Johnny. Right. But when Johnny shoots Sally down the street, should we be saying anything then? You know what I mean? That's what really bothers me in our community is that, you know, we have so many kids and so many parents that have lost a loved one due to gun violence in our community, and we harbor those people. You know what I mean? We say nothing. So we have this snitch code thing that we have going on, and nobody wants to say anything, but we know that Johnny shot her, but nobody's going to say anything. Yeah. Johnny's going to go shoot somebody else. So I mean, we have so many issues in our community that need to be addressed that there's no silver bullet, you know, to fix it all, right? Right. So you got to take one step at a time. You got to take one step at a time. You got to chip away one step at a time. That's why I'm so proud of what it is that a lot of these groups are doing. So my group doesn't have to do as much. We can focus on one thing because we know that this other group over here is focusing on that, right? Right. And if you're going to fix that, you know, I'm good with that because I see what you're doing because I watch what you're doing. So I know that that's handled and that's taken care of. So I can continue to focus on this here until we can get this here fixed and this is taken care of. And then all this stuff comes together before you know it, we're good. Yeah. We build our own centers. We build our own
Absolutely.
centers if we have to.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to talk about one thing real quick about the idea of college, because that is something, that has been forced, to a lot of kids. I also think that the way it's been done has been very disingenuous in a lot of ways. It's been, okay, Johnny, go to college, right? We don't take kids to colleges so they can see what a college actually looks like. We don't show them how to write a college essay. We don't talk to them about, hey, what does a college application process look like? We don't talk to them about any of these things. We just say, you should go to college. If I told you, you should build an airplane, and I just said, okay, cool, now go build an airplane. I don't give you an instruction manual. I don't give you any resources. I just say, go build an airplane.
Start flapping the wings.
Right. So then it does become, I think then it does become that if you end up building an airplane, yeah, you just happen to be one of the people who had the resources. But what if we change the approach? What if instead of doing that, we say, okay, cool, Johnny, I want to expose you to college. You may not decide not to go to college. All right. But what you won't be able to say is that you didn't have the knowledge, the requisite knowledge to be able to go to college should you choose so. So what I'm going to do is I want you to go to college, whether you want to go or not. I want you to at least know how to get there. So I'm going to show you how to fill out a college application, which is also a skill that applies to job applications. One way or another, you're going to have to fill out an application. It's just that this is one that's for college and these is for regular, for careers. Two different things. I'm going to show you how to write a resume. That's something that you're going to need for college. I'm also going to show you how to use what you do on a day-to-day basis to build your resume. That's something you can do for a career. That's something you need for college. I'm going to take you on a college campus so you can say, oh, well, maybe I don't want to go to college, but at least I know what a college campus looks like. I've had kids tell me that they don't want to go to college, but they couldn't name a college. Mm-hmm. So how can you tell me that you don't want to go somewhere that you've never actually heard of? These are things
what's
that
even
we
sadder.
do. Go ahead, Butch.
What's even sadder, John, is you got people from Charleston that's never been to Somerville. You got kids that live in Charleston that's never been to Somerville. Much less to Columbia, right?
I remember the first time I went to Somerville. I was in my senior year of high school. We went to a Fort Dorchester game. North Charleston played Fort Dorchester. I am a North Charleston High School grad. Go Cougs! And we went to the game, the Fort Dorchester game, and they're like, "Yo, we're gonna go to a party." And I'm like, "Where?" They said in Somerville. I'm like, "What is Somerville?" Dead serious. So we get on what is it, Dorchester Road, and we start driving like what feels like forever.
Yeah, you saw Frankie's Fun Lane. That probably blew your mind. No,
but see, I passed Frankie's Fun Park to get to Fort Dorchester. If I had to go, because we had to pass Frankie's Fun Park. Yeah. But I had been to Frankie's Fun Park, so I knew what Frankie's Fun Park was. Okay. My mom used to take me there. But like we passed the Rock and Roll McDonald's, and we just kept driving. And I'm like, this is the longest ride I've ever been on in my life. And my family's from St. George, but it was just the fact that I had never been to this place called Somerville. So we get there, and it's this teen party, and I was there until I think it was like 1 o'clock, and we left at like 1 o'clock. And it felt so far away from me that I went to my uncle's house on Ashley Phosphate Road and spent the night there because I didn't think I'd make it back home before like the morning. Like, I'm dead serious. Somerville was that far away from me. So when you said that rang a bell for me.
When I talk to kids in our summer camp at Camp Hope every summer, when I talk to these kids, man, if they've never been out of their area, you know what I mean? Much less if you take them to a college campus. I mean, you want to hit the nail on the head, man. They can't hit what they can't see. So we need to expose them to more things, man. We need to expose our kids to more things, man. And they're definitely thirsty for it. That's what you were doing.
And that's what you were doing with the Boys to Men conference, man. And I can't wait until we have it. You know, it's going to be a great event. I know many of the speakers that are going to be there. I am one of the speakers that is going to be there. Pew, 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 plug.
Yes, you are.
But I'm excited, yo. I'm excited because I know what it's going to do. I know what it's going to do. I want you to just give them some more about what they can expect when the event happens.
There's going to be a concert there, man. It's going to be a gospel concert. I got my boy Choice. I don't know if you ever heard Choice perform.
Oh, I heard
before.
Choice. That's Chris. Yes.
But Chris is off the chart, man. I don't understand. I call him my little Kirk Franklin because I don't understand why he hasn't just blown up there. If you haven't never heard the Transition CD, buddy, you are from a different planet, man. This dude is a performer. And he's an amazing performer, man. And there's a bunch of amazing performers here in the Charleston area. And they're going to come. There's going to be a concert atmosphere. We got great speakers. I mean, we bought all the Chiefs are going to be there. Chief Reynolds and as well as Reggie Burgess. They're going to be there. They're going to talk to these kids and tell them their journey as well. But my main thing is that they also get an opportunity to talk and ask them questions, right? They also get the opportunity to talk to the solicitor, ask her questions. Why are our kids being put in jail? What's going on with your laws? What does this misimprisonment mean? And why is my son getting 10 years for misimprisonment? What is all that about? And there's a lot of questions that that these people that affect our community. They'll sit down and they'll sit down. We'll have the conversations with them, and that's the important part for our kids, man. We got, like I said, we have kids from DJJ that are going to be there that have gone through this process with them. You know what I mean? And I feel like once you get in and have a relationship with law enforcement, you realize that not all of them are bad. You know what I mean? Some of my best friends are law enforcement.
Yeah.
When's the party?
And I just want to say that again.
When is the party?
We don't know. Well. You talking about the Boys to Men conference?
Yeah,
it was scheduled.
It was
scheduled for August the 29th. It was August the 29th, yeah. But we have to reschedule it, and we're going to try to see what happens after the new year. It looks like we're going to do it next year, to be honest with you. So my company actually shut down. They're not opening up till January.
Right.
We shut down. We're not opening up till January.
I might have an idea, Butch, about how we can do that, but I'll talk to you offline about it.
Yeah,
I might have an idea.
Yeah, something virtual.
Nah, something that can combine some things and really take it to the next level. Like something I've actually been trying to plan for a while, but I just was trying to figure out a way to make it work. But yeah, we can talk about it. I got you.
Well,
I got you.
We can make it happen, man. We can make it happen.
I don't want to be overly presumptuous here. Do you only have a few minutes left in the show, or how long does your show usually go?
So I was going to start wrapping up, but if you got something to say, let's cook. I'm with it.
If you don't mind, because you guys touched on so much, I wanted to take a couple notes here just to make sure I didn't forget anything. Because
please do. As
Butch is going on, again, Butch, thank you for your service, but also, I really appreciate the role that you've assumed as a role model for a lot of young folks.
Absolutely.
But as you talk about cultural influences, and I am a transplant. I'm a Jayhawker from Kansas. I grew up in Leavenworth.
Rock Chalk.
Rock Chalk. That's right. Which is why basketball is such an important sport to my life, but because it brings a lot of people together. But what I'm talking about though is I grew up in the public school system, and we talk about differences in culture. And Leavenworth, where I'm from, is right on the Missouri River, so it has a free state of Kansas. We have a heavy black population, and we actually have a racial demographic very similar to Charleston, which is probably why I find it so familiar. But the difference is we had our first black mayor in Leavenworth in 1920. Wow. And his name was Ben Day, and I actually went to Ben Day Elementary School. So we have actually a more homogenous culture than Jim Crow South did. And, Lincoln gave his last speech before he was nominated for president in Leavenworth the week prior. And then he went to New York City the next week and was nominated for president when the Civil War started. But there's a lot of those. People have a modern interpretation of the Republican Party. I'm just saying that I come from a different cloth, and I digress. But what I was wanting to talk about is homogeneity in our cultures.
Yeah.
To go to school together, to actually grow up together. That was the focus of our mission critical work that Darren Goss of
Coastal Community Foundation.
Coastal Community Foundation. He's actually cousins with my next door neighbor. And Darren was a Army vet, spent some time in Leavenworth. And our focus there was, how do we get kids to go to school together? And then, of course, Mission Critical comes out. You've never seen a more bipartisan effort to throw everybody on the school board out on there, you know what?
Yes.
And it's really hard to get change to happen. But what's so important is about having little boys and little girls of different walks of life growing up together. And some of the best influence, I said I come from a broken home. I still had a lovely family and a lovely home. but divorced parents. But the point being is that some of the most positive influence on some of my friends growing up was that they knew that they had a safe place to go and that their mother could come and pick them up after she finished work, and I could have a positive influence on them, and then they had a positive experience growing up.
Yeah.
That's where the non-college aspect comes in, because even if you aren't good at school, I mean, you can just show up with it. Being a veteran, show up in the right uniform at the right time with a good attitude. Boy, I tell you what, you'll be fine. I don't know, ReZsaun, I don't mean to diminish. Did you serve at all in any branch?
I served in the Army.
God bless. We got 3 veterans on here.
Man,
what am I talking about? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I still say it goes Coast Guard, Air Force, Navy, Army, Marines. But anyway, that's in case you're thinking about joining.
Hold on, wait.
Well, I need to let you talk about that, because if my wife was Army too. Now she said I was never in the military because I was in the Air Force.
And you weren't. And you weren't.
Right. That's right.
And you weren't.
Yes.
I was gonna go. My wife knows. Like, my wife was Air
You gonna let
Force.
slip, huh?
So we have that all. We have this discussion.
Y'all play volleyball for PT.
You have the same discussion. ReZsaun, we need to get our wives together, man. Me, you, and our wives need to get together. Me and your wife can team up against you and my wife.
Yeah.
Because you both were Army, right?
Yeah.
And she beats up on me all the time because I was Air Force. So I'm pretty sure you had the same conversations with your wife, right?
Well, see, the thing is, you were in, you Air Force people, y'all definitely got uniforms. You definitely had uniforms.
She would love you, man. She would
lived
love
on a base. You were military-ish. You're military-ish. Weren't y'all deployments like 3 months?
Say what?
Y'all deployments like 3 months,
he said,
right?
You hear me? He said, what's the deployment?
What is the deployment? What is that? It's funny that I did more deploying since I left the Air Force than I did when I was in the Air Force. So,
that's nuts.
So no, I had an Air Force life, man. I loved it, man. I went to the chow hall and ordered steak every day whenever I felt like I wanted a steak. And
that sounds like it.
But bring it back home. I'm telling you what. I mean, being in the military, of all walks of life, the more we learn about one another, the more we become Americans together, and the better our entire society is. And then that, like, the snitch culture and all that stuff that Butch was talking about goes away because they have an identity of a community together, not just kind of an us and them or a clique.
Yeah.
Non-college, we talked about that, making people just more aware of the multiple paths available to them. And again, if I were to have the opportunity to serve in the office that I seek, there's $1 million budget every year for each congressman. That's obnoxious, first and foremost. But $1 million, immediately I stand up. Every single branch office that I'll have throughout the district is going to have a financial specialist. So that way, anybody of any walk of life that wants to come in and understand how to open up a checking account, that wants to understand how to build credit, how to apply for a credit card, how to apply for a loan, how to apply for a mortgage. All of these basic things that you were hitting on, ReZsaun. That was what you were talking about. Is just the fact that you don't even know how to fill out an application. Yeah. Those basic life skills that, if you grow up in a broken home without any guidance, without any love, nobody's going to teach you that you need to pay taxes. The reason that a lot of businesses didn't get any PPP loans is because they don't have an existing relationship with a bank.
True.
It's not racist. It's just you don't participate in the system. The system doesn't take care of you. That's not racism. That's ignorance. I mean, and let's make the world less ignorant, and let's help people. Let's be a facilitator. And you don't even need legislation for that. And so I'm telling you, there's a lot of pragmatic solutions that I don't think are political or party affiliated. It's about being more efficient and not feeding the public lip service about how put upon people are, about how victimized people are. It's about how do we take our God-given disposition, good, bad, and indifferent, and improve upon it.
Absolutely. That's very well said, man. Very well said. That was an amazing point. I'm going to start to wrap because we're getting over an hour now. And I want to respect everybody's time. First of all, I want to thank you both for being a part of this, and the fact that we were able to throw this away and throw this out here the way that we did, and still have a really substantive conversation. I feel like we got to a lot of meat. I'm pretty sure we could get to more. So I want to go and extend this invitation to John. If you want to come back on, you are welcome anytime between now and the election, man. I'm a big believer in giving people a chance to be heard. And I do not discriminate based on party allegiances. So just know that that date that you put on the calendar, I'll still bring you back. I got you. And we can extend this even further. Butch, the love and respect I got for you, brother. This I can't even overstate it. I can't even overstate it.
It's mutual, my brother. It's mutual. I did want to say one thing before you go.
Cool.
And we talked about legislation, right? So I did want to say one thing before we go, and I just want to say that I talked about the Attorney General always having the silent witness program at the in the State House in Columbia. But what we found out when we did that, we found out that over 75% of the victims, that the lethality, the people that are murdered via domestic violence, are murdered with a gun, right? So the legislation that we work for and the legislation that we were geared towards is if you are convicted of domestic violence, then your gun should be removed. You should not be able to have a gun. And I just wondered how John felt about something like that.
Ooh,
I mean, the paperwork is there, over 75%. And I'm a gun owner. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, I'm a gun owner. My wife's ex police officer, so she's ex MP in the Army. And my thing has always been, if 75% of the victims of domestic violence who are being murdered are murdered with a weapon, should people who convicted of domestic violence, should they be able to carry a weapon?
Oh, Butch, and I hate to give you a political response because you're probably a more strong gun advocate than I am. I didn't even own a gun until the riots in Charleston. I'm a former military member, but I didn't grow up in households with guns. I'm a city kid. I'm not a country kid. So we didn't grow up with guns in my household. We didn't go hunting. But now I own a gun.
Yeah.
Regrettably.
Yeah.
And I find it to be a sad happenstance. But I do believe in what the founders wrote. I do believe in the absolute right to bear arms. And I will defend that right. But I think that you were hitting on something that's interesting, that is the nuance of our legislative capacity. I'm not a Republican who believes in the absence of government. I believe in government that works. And I think that there is nuance. There is legislation that you can pursue. There is different sorts of inspections or criterion that you can actually legislate your way towards. But I think that that's probably a way longer debate than ReZsaun's willing to host.
I'm getting off of y'all. Y'all don't understand. My wife will tell you I've been on these things until 2:00 in the morning at times. So to me, time is not the issue. But I do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to have a substantive discussion about it. I also want to say this. So I also bought a gun in the last year. But it wasn't the riots. It was actually the whole idea of like when things started shutting down. I feared how far in the hole we would become economically.
Well, dog, you clearly don't live downtown, man.
No, I live in Somerville.
I got a gun.
I live in the city I couldn't find when I was in high school. I live in Somerville.
You love it there now, don't you?
Yeah, I love it in Somerville now. When everything's happening in Charleston, I'm like, well, I'm also, and this is, I hate saying this, but I will never live in Charleston again. I just won't. I will never live in North Charleston. I'll never live in Charleston again. It's just not the place that I remember it being. And I don't love the direction that it's going in.
Right.
That's fascinating. That's a hell of a statement, right?
Yeah, I don't love the direction that it's going in. I don't. And I just will never live there. This is the closest I will ever live to Charleston. Is Somerville. If anything, I move further back.
Yeah.
That's
I love
crazy.
Somerville. I'm in Ladson now.
I love
I'm
Somerville.
actually in Ladson now, so I'm right down the road. Yeah, I love Somerville. Yeah.
Where do you live, John?
I live downtown on the west side, man, but regrettably, neither of you can vote for me. That's the thing.
I know, man.
But you've got reach that's far and wide. I told you, I've seen Butch out at multiple events before. I know I'm going to see you again. ReZsaun, I can't wait to meet you in the flesh. But point being is that Charleston is a very dear place in my heart. My wife and I have been here for 10 years now, and we made it our home. I had the option to move home to Kansas City, chose not to. And I find that to just be really just tragic. And you're right, vacancies approaching 50% on King Street. I mean, there's more people harassing the citizens on the street of King Street than there are citizens on the street currently.
Yeah.
We've got riots to the 30th. We've got protests every other weekend. We've got to bind up the nation's wounds. We've got to find a way to come together as opposed to being these cults, these different, tribes. It's nonsense. We are Americans. And to be honest with you, why am I running as a Republican? Well, the incumbent's a Democrat. That's why.
Yeah. And he's Jim Clyburn. And he's Jim Clyburn.
If Bakari Sellers or Marlon Kempson or any of these other big names would have been willing to run against him, I probably would just be an average citizen fading into the woodwork. But being paint colored,
I think that might be their plan after he retires. Though. I think they're gonna wait till he retires to try to run.
And that's part of the argument is that this frees up that process as opposed to Mr. Clyburn naming his successor. But
true.
But the point being is that we need to have somebody who's willing to focus on our common core values, which we clearly all have, regardless of race, regardless of party affiliation. We have this visceral desire to love each other, to encourage each other, to be a good example. And we all see the BS. We all see a bad actor from 100 miles away, and it has nothing to do with what color of skin we are. We just know a bad actor when we see one, that they're not a good influence on our kids.
Right. Absolutely. So I want you to make that final pitch to the people. Why should they vote for you in November?
Well, it's a part of my piece that I wrote actually recently in the Post and Courier. I hope maybe you both saw it, and if not, you can Google me, John McCollum for Congress, and it'll come up. And it's one focusing on how do we mobilize the 6th district, the corridor of shame, 28 years of inactivity and a lack of results. And I'm telling you that the best way to give people opportunity and purpose is by giving them a good job. And that'll be my sole focus. And then secondarily to that, if you are a Democrat that has voted for Jim Clyburn for 28 years, set the party free. Congressman is not a hereditary title. He should not be able to name his daughter or any of his children. God bless them and God bless his family. But it's not a hereditary title that passes on to his children. And he should not be allowed to name his successor. So all of these wonderful candidates that are on the Democratic side that are just either, kissing up to him or waiting for them to curry favor with him to be named his successor, that's crap. The people should choose the Democratic nominee. And it should be a democratic process. And there's wonderful people. I mean, I didn't even name Wendell Gilliard. I didn't even name Marvin Pendarvis or Jay Moore. Jay Moore coming out of the woodwork now. I mean, these guys are all great people, but none of them want to challenge status quo. Jim Clyburn is a legend. He's a civil rights icon. I don't want to disrespect his legacy whatsoever. We'll build a statue for him eventually. Yeah. But the point being is that this is an opportunity. One, give a young guy a try that clearly cares about people. And it also it wipes the slate clean. They did the same thing for the 1st district with Joe Cunningham. They've never had more interest from both parties in the 1st district. Now, do the same thing with the 6th. You want the Democrats all vying for your attention? Hell yeah. You want the Republicans to actually care about the 6th? Hell yeah. Let's do it. Vote for somebody that they never thought of.
Okay, that sounds like a good argument to me. I like it, and I thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it, man.
It's been a pleasure, a total honor, man. I really appreciated hearing your thoughts the other night, and I appreciate the invitation. And Butch, God bless you, man, and God bless your work, and good on you.
It's great. It's great meeting you, young man. It's great meeting you. Too bad I can't.
Parting thoughts, Butch.
Thank you for having me, man. I never said that at the beginning, but thank you for having me, man. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation with John, man, immensely. And we need to do this again, man, again and again and again. I appreciate you, man. So thanks a lot.
Indeed. I guess my closing thoughts are going to be as follows. I believe in the principle of talking to people who you disagree with. And that's really the premise of this entire show, is having discussions that are difficult to have in an undifficult way. We can disagree without being disagreeable. I believe that, there's enough space here on this here internet to where I don't have to run to my corner and talk to people who only think like I think. That's
Right.
that's where we are able to make the change. That's where we are able to be the difference. That's when we are able to change the world. The world is far too segmented along party lines, along lines of race, along the lines of gender, along the lines of sexuality, along the lines of religion, and every other separating distinction that you could possibly think of. And the more we get conversations like this to happen, where we can come together and say, okay, maybe we disagree on things, but where do we agree? And the things that we disagree on, let's have a substantive discussion about why we disagree on them. And even if we only walk away with, well, let's agree to disagree, we at least heard each other. And we gotta hear each other. If we don't hear each other, the world will be even worse than it is now. And it's not great now. So with that being said, I'm going to end the show. Where's my theme music? Thank y'all so much for watching this week. It was different. This was different. I really, really enjoyed this, man. Shout out to Butch. Shout out to John. Please check them out. I didn't ask for their websites. What's your website, Butch?
PalmettoHopeNetwork.org.
All right, John, what's your website?
John4sc.com, FOR.
All right, that's it. Look them up. Please, do not let this conversation be the last one that you have. If something came up in the course of this discussion that you're like, you know what, I hear them, but I don't fully understand it, leave a comment in the comment section and let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you disagree about, and let's bring this back again, and let's have another one of these discussions in a way that maybe we disagree on something, but maybe we learned something we didn't know, which is a positive thing. That's a good thing. That's what life is all about. This has been Real Talk with ReZsaun, the local celebrity spotlight. I do this every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. But tomorrow I'm actually doing a special show at 4 p.m. I'm going to have Jill, I know her as Jalita Griffin, but she's Jill Bullock now because she's married and she's grown. And Trail Ravenel, they are the Be Ye Transform Network. They're going to be coming on to talk about an event that they're doing that they could use some support for. So please make sure you tune in tomorrow at 4 p.m. I will be live. If you are watching the show and you're like, you know what? I got something I'm doing that I want to bring to light to, reach out to me on my website. It's www.realtalkwithrezaun.com. Let's try to get you scheduled to get on this show, because as you can tell, I do pretty good interviews. Ha ha ha. That was a joke, but I'm serious. If you would like for me to speak at or host your event, please reach out to me on my website as well, www.realtalkwithrezaun.com. And I would love to come out and speak at your event. I guess I'll end right there. Oh, follow me on social media to stay up to date on what's happening in Real Talk with ReZsaun. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere you can find people, you can probably find me, Real Talk ReZsaun. I keep it pretty basic. Leave a review, 5-star review if you can. If you didn't like it, let me know why you didn't like it so I can get better. I want to get better, and I can only get better if y'all are honest with me. So be honest with me. That's important. Lastly, God is everything, and without him, we are nothing. So never forget where your help comes from. And if a man doesn't stand for something, he is bound to fall for anything. Now that is Real Talk. I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.
Raheem.
All right, John.
ReZsaun, you still recording?
Nah, I'm off, man.